left, right. Yeah, that's it.
How do you feel, buddy?
Thanks. Feel good.
Excited?
Your phone.
Ooh, what's up? Oh man. Looks good. Wow.
What's up, fans and gamers alike? This is Josh Rockstark, and holy moly, I got to try CTR over the weekend, and I want to make a video with my impressions of the game. And let me just say, wow. Just wow. If this is close, remotely close to what this game is going to be, it's going to be fantastic when it comes out. Now, this is a earlier build of the game because Dingodile didn't have a tail, and the same skins and same customization options were available. But I want to give you guys my impression of the game and how I feel about some things, some aspects of the game. I want to go into details because I've had some time to think about it. Unfortunately, from the footage that we introed into, that's as much footage as I could get. The guy did tell us that we weren't allowed to record video and take pictures of the demo, which is okay, I guess. It's unfortunate, but you can't blame the guy for doing his job. Plus, he was a really cool guy. We got to chat about the game and talk, so you know what? It's not a big deal. I'll get more footage at another time when the demo is available at another store. Before we get into it, please subscribe to the channel because there's a lot more CTR content that I've put on the channel already, and there is definitely more to come. So without further ado, let's get into my impressions of the CTR demo at Best Buy. Now let me just preface that I got a chance to race each of the 3 tracks twice, and I used different characters, especially in different classes, and a lot of people want to know how it controls, and let me tell you, it controls 1-to-1. It felt great. The very first race that I popped into was Polar Pass because I wanted to go for that track right away, and I was using Coco, and I could drift perfectly. There was no learning curve. Everything was mechanically the same, and it even felt better than CTR's controls. What I mean by that is the drifting itself gives you a little bit more angles to play with when you are actually in the drift, and it feels really good compared to the original. I'd say the controls feel exactly the same because they were trying to get it 1-to-1, but once you get into the drift, it feels much better than the original. And I really loved drifting in that game. It felt so good, and I was really happy that I could just hop in the game for the very first time and just go. Just like muscle memory kicked in, everything felt good, and I could just play it and have that satisfaction and ease my worries about it. One of the other things I was worried about was the sense of speed that the game was going to give you and momentum, because CNK, for me anyways, I'm speaking about myself, I did not like that aspect of the game. But I can tell you that not only is the reserve system in full force, and the speed and momentum of the game is perfect. If they're not tweaking anything, that is the perfect speed and momentum and the perfect feel of the game. You can really tell when you are playing the game that the reserve system is kicking in, because you feel like you're going fast, just like the original. Now, when it came to the jumping, that's where I sort of got a little bit of mixed reactions, because it did feel good, but I felt there was something a little bit off about it. For example, when I was in Polar Pass, one of the good things is that I could make that jump that's towards the end of the track with that hairpin turn. You can just jump and go right over. I don't know if that's because the reserve system is working so good in this game that it just let me just plow through that part, but at the beginning when I was trying to hit that, I was overthinking it. I would slide into the area where you do the jump, where the hill is, and then try to go over. But I soon realized I didn't need to do that. I would just have enough speed to get to that hill and just burn right over that that ledge, and it was no problem. The jumping feels really responsive and really good. However, I do feel like you have a bit too much hang time when you are in the jump. And I was on Tiger Temple going over some of the hills, and it is a bumpy track to begin with, but I felt like once you hit the jump, it's kind of not worth it to make some of those jumps because there's so much hang time. I don't know if they're going to fix that for the original game or it's just something I'm going to have to work around, but it felt like there was a little too much hang time, and that instead of going forward when you jump, you kind of just go up too much. And instead, like, when you go off the jump, you should be moving further through the jump, into the jump, instead of up and then hanging in the air and coming down and boosting the rest of the way. Talking a little bit about the visuals, we've already seen that this game is detailed, it's very nice and very crisp, but it's a whole different experience when you're racing. Like, I had to take my eyes off what I was doing to see everything. And I then remembered, oh, I have to turn now. Oh, okay, now focus on the turning. Because I kept looking around the levels because it's such a beautiful experience. There's just so much detail in each of these levels. And it's really going to take some time to explore all the detail they put in the game, in the background, in the foreground, things they've changed from the original. Like in Polar Pass, when you get to the figure 8 section at the beginning, you can see all the detail they've added into that section, and it just keeps going as you keep racing through. Even levels like Crash Cove are just, the light rays are beautiful, and like just it gives that sunny look that a beach needs. Like a mid-evening, midday beach looks like that, and it just looks incredible. Let's talk about the weapons, which I have a couple nitpicks about, but you know what, these are easy fixes, and they're definitely going to probably fix these anyways when the game comes out. I felt like the beakers are a little invisible when they're on the track. I see what they're going for with the glass being see-through, that's the way it would look, but you kind of can't notice them when you're on the track. It's good if you're the person putting it and you know where it is, but if you're the person driving and you can't see these things, it's going to be a little bit harder to avoid them. And I encountered a couple oddities, like when I was in first I got an Aku mask. Okay. Oh, ain't no kill like overkill. So I hope they kind of balance that out, which obviously they're going to balance it out. And then the last thing related to combat and weapons is I felt the recovery time when you hit an obstacle, let's say like the flames in Tiger Temple, or when you get hit with a missile, get hit with a bomb, I felt like the recovery time has a bit too much lag and a bit too much startup after you get hit. So I think that once you get hit, it's gonna be really hard to come back because the startup is kind of too much. You can't just get hit and jump back into the race, and that makes weapons very effective in the game. I guess this is something you'd have to like spend time with to figure out if it's a good thing or a bad thing, and it's probably gonna be a good thing, maybe a good thing in one mode and a bad thing in another mode, but that was one thing I didn't really care for all that much. But these are all things, again, that could be fixed later. And I guess the last thing I want to talk about is they nailed the character classes, because I raced first on Polar Pass, I raced with Coco, and then I raced with Papu the second time I played Polar Pass, and Papu was a lot more difficult to maneuver that track, especially with the turns, as it is in the original game. So they really nailed that aspect of it, and you can definitely tell when I popped in Polar, racing as Polar on Tiger Temple, the turning is a lot better, and the top speed going through the tunnel, you could tell it's not as much as if it were playing obviously a heavy or even playing the intermediate class. So there is a variability to the stats, and they do make them dynamic just like the original, and it's not always going to be like each character plays the same. I'm still a little mixed on like taking the split that is in the original game between the intermediate class and putting them into one. I'm not sure how that's going to affect the game, but nonetheless, it's a choice they made. But otherwise, the characters feel great in terms of their stats. So if you do want someone who has a little bit more turning, it is definitely worth it to pop from a character like Crash in the intermediate class and hopping over to a character like Polar in the handling class, because you will get that difference. And likewise, if you go on a track like Tiger Temple and you want straight speed because that thing's practically like a loop track, it is worth it to go from any of the other two classes and get the maximum top speed you can get with a character like Papu Papu or Dingle Dial or Tiny. So it's good that the feeling of each character is there, and it's like the original. The classes are not blending in together and making each character the same, which is good. I hope they do take a little bit more advantage of that in the game, because now there's only 3 classes. You got to make a way to differentiate these guys. But nonetheless, solid job on that. So those are my thoughts on the CTR demo. I hope you guys got a better insight in what I experienced, and I hope that the demo comes to a place near you. I'm gonna get some more opportunities to try it later in the month, especially since the rep told me that EB Games will be having it and Best Buy will be having another showing of the game. So I'll definitely get more chances to play, and hopefully I can get some footage for you guys. Until then, my name is Josh Rockstark, and peace out.